Welcome back to the Glint Standard. Today we're going to be talking about how creativity plays a role in big thinking.
So creativity, big thinking.
You know, it's funny, everybody, when you say creative, it means you're a designer or you're an artist or you're, whatever that is. And I think people lose sight of the fact that I think every individual is creative to some degree.
Yeah.
Right? And it's really inspiring and cool. Now, I think the challenge is a lot of people don't know how to do anything with that creativity.
Yeah, and I would say people are creative in different ways, but I know that was even one of the things I had to overcome, right? When I first started working here, even,
right?
I kept saying, like, well, I'm not really creative. And
yeah, which drives me crazy.
Yeah.
But you are.
I am.
And you've probably realized that by now.
I do now.
But you had to be told that you were. That's the thing that's weird. But your whole background in life really has been pretty creative.
It has. I think it's just more of what we immediately interpret as creativity. And
true.
Creative is design, drawing, art, music, those kinds of things, right? Rather than, like, I'm very creative with the way that I come up with digital ad strategies and
right.
thinking through every aspect, or a customer journey, or, client acquisition and those kinds of things, right? So I can get very creative in the way that we strategize and target and those kinds of things. But I'm maybe not the best drawer in the world either, so...
Yeah, and you don't need to be, right?
No.
I mean, as long as you get the point across, right? You've got an idea for an ad campaign.
Yeah.
You can be a terrible drawer. It doesn't matter. Can you get the point across? Because that's the part that I think hinders a lot of people is you go, oh, we have the creative team in the room. Now, the creative team is important. Don't get me wrong. They're ultra focused on the idea of conceptualization, right? What images go with what words to drive engagement, blah, 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 right? Now, at the end of the day, though, that's pretty much where that stops, right? Where creativity comes from the account side, before it even gets to creative, am I going to win that business?
Yeah.
Am I going to do a proposal?
Yeah.
Am I going to do this? Or do I have to think outside the box?
Oh, yeah.
That's being creative. That's what wins business, right? Yeah. That's what wins in any area, even if you're an IT person, right? How am I going to creatively solve this challenge where I'm not getting enough, I don't know IT real well, bandwidth to this corner of the office? How am I going to solve that? Buy another router, jump it over there, this, that, and the other, right?
Yeah.
There may be some other solutions where if you just stop for a minute, and that's the key to it all, right? Being creative, stop and think. And allow yourself to think outside of the normal lines.
Yeah. I started watching master classes at the beginning of last year, and it's been very educational on lots of different levels, but hearing some of the best CEOs in the entire world speak about their day and how they go about it, the thing I noticed is a lot of them have a designated time within their day that they basically meditate or they don't have outside influence coming in on them, right? They don't check their phones, or they're out for a walk and they just listen to music, right, or whatever that is. But then a lot of them, the one that immediately comes to mind is Bob Iger, right? He actually cuts out a portion of his day that is specifically made for just creative, as much brainstorming, creative thought as he can kind of come up with. And he does it with a team of creative people, right? So he does it because they needed to turn around animation at Disney back when he became the CEO. And so he actually would sit down with the animators and think through ways that we could get very out of the box, right? And he goes, just imagine if nothing was off the table, right? Like, what could we come up with? What could we conceptualize? What could we idealize, right?
And a lot of that is falling into the same idea of what do we think creative is. And that falls into it, right? But take that same thing, and it's about, okay, how am I going to get more people in the park? How am I going to do that? And when you're alone, you're meditating on those things, or just let your mind wander.
Yeah.
It could be personal, creative things you solve personally in your life, not always work, because it does blend together. No, it does in this industry.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So that part, I think, is super important. And I think the reason CEOs do this is they tend to be ultra confident in their abilities, right? Not that they know how to do everything and do everything the best way, but they're very confident in their decisions, right?
Yeah.
And they are thinking always about how can we leverage where we are?
Yeah.
How can we do this? And it means I need to think outside the box a little bit here just to know that I've covered all my bases. It's super creative that way. And then you break it down to every level within the organization. If everybody's doing that, I mean, you're humming along.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the one thing you have to be careful of is that's not all you're doing, right?
Right.
Just thinking through and being creative and coming up with ideas is just not enough. You have to know how to execute and pull a team together to pull it off.
Yeah, and it's part of it is trying to think through the perfect idea, right? And try to get it to a place where it's like, okay, this is finally exactly as it needs to be.
Right.
You could be 3 months behind all your competitors at that point because you were trying to come up with the perfect creative scenario, right? Or getting truly innovative.
Well, that's funny because that makes me think of an old tagline, right, for 3M. We don't make a lot of the things you use every day. We make a lot of the things you use every day better.
Ooh.
And that's the idea of it, right? Never first to market, never the original idea people. That's a great idea. This is how we can make it better, kind of thing, right? So taking through all that, and I mean, you can take creativity anywhere, right? So how do you tie creativity to innovation? There's a lot of that going on as well.
Absolutely. And I would say even especially as we start to blend technology into that as well, right? The way that innovation is quickly becoming overcome by advancements in technology. And so, like one example of that is I saw an ad the other day for it goes, "Aren't you tired of Zoom meetings?" Which we're all tired of Zoom meetings at this point.
Right.
But they'd come up with a VR space where you could actually have a meeting and rather than like, or rather than just everybody sitting like we see at the basketball games right now where everybody's just kind of sitting in the stands or doing that kind of thing, they actually had like little balls and they were rolling across like a mini putt thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, everybody get to your separate rooms, and like they all had to go off in their own
That's
thing.
cool.
So it was like very interactive, but it was very creative thinking. Like somebody went, how do we take meetings that are extremely boring? We're about to have a breakout session, and it was perfect for like seminars and all day conferences that now have to be online, right? Well, how do we take those and make them fun and engaging and get it out of the norm of just a Zoom meeting that then you break off into this room and you're just seeing everybody's faces or those kinds of things, right? So as we're innovating, I think the people that are very successful in that are the ones that can do that creatively, right? They apply creativity to what they're doing, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean it had to be a special avatar or anything like that. They were like, well, what if we did this, right? And made it a mini putt game and they're running around, right?
Yeah, and you think about creativity. I mean, ad agencies obviously they think, oh yeah, they have it, right, and all of that. But take an accounting firm.
Yeah.
You go, yeah, no way, right? Because it's very structured what they do. But there can be some great creativity in there, and when you take the time to even think through that process, maybe you keep coming to the same answer. This is the best way, or the best approach. But what if? Right? What if will get you down some cool paths, and sometimes you just need to get out of your four walls, right? We invite our clients here, like this is your space, not ours, right?
Exactly.
Come here and think. That's all you got to do. And maybe you come up with nothing. That's fine. You're not going to solve anything every single time, right? You got to take your time. Sometimes those things will hit. When they hit, they're big. They can be so great.
Well, I think it's honestly one of the biggest enjoyments I get at working in an agency rather than brand side is we deal with so many different brands, and I love meeting new people within new industries or people that have been in the industry forever and not fully understanding their jobs, right? I mean, they understand it better than I do because they do it. Yeah.
That is their job.
That is their job. So, but like just going in and talking to them and having that very novice approach, right? Where I don't fully understand it. I don't fully grasp every little detail, but they'll tell me something. Well, we do this and this and this, but why do you do it? Like, why do you do it that way? Why do you? And so sometimes it just takes like a person who's completely oblivious to whatever you're doing to step into that space.
Like an outside perspective kind of thing. Yeah.
But like so basic, right? Like they don't even understand some of the fundamentals because it's like, well, I mean, but why? Like, why do you do that? Like, and it could be something that every accounting firm does all the
Captain
time,
Obvious,
right?
yeah. How have we never thought of this, right?
Yeah. And so, like, really helps you push that forward in a very different way.
So then, really, creativity on its own lends to be more of a problem solver as well, right? Be a good problem solver, you pretty much have to be creative, right?
Yeah. I think we actually covered that in a previous podcast.
We have previous episode podcasts of that. So if you want to check that out, go check out our channel and look at how to be a problem solver. Everybody thinks they are, not everyone is. So anyway, segue back.
But yes,
Shink, done, got that.
No, we. But it is one of the things that we talked about
right.
in the episode was one of the best ways to overcome challenges is really stepping back, looking at the challenge in the most basic sense, and then trying to find a very different or creative approach to innovate that at that point, right? To push it forward in a very different direction and really start to make that not a challenge anymore, right? Solve that problem.
Yeah, I think the hard part, take our industry out of it, because I think that you naturally give time for creativity. You need to, right? It's across any industry. Are you truly putting time into allowing the people who work for you or the people at the top to sit back and go, just think for a couple hours, which means you're not on point, but you don't want people on point. Just let the brain flow where it needs to go and talk about some obscure stuff that, like, what in the world? But it can lead to so many great places. But how many companies will not allow that time?
Oh, yeah.
And it's so beneficial, right?
Yeah, the thing that immediately comes to mind for me is companies that track their time often, right? Because they're like, I want you working 8 hours a day, right?
I'm paying you 8 hours a day. Here's your hourly rate or whatever it is, right?
So you better be working. It better be billable hours. It better be, and it's like, but if you were to stop and actually just take 2 hours out of the day to sit, brainstorm, come up with different creative ways to overcome challenges within the company, would you not be better off, right, moving forward?
Yeah, and even if it's not every day, take it once a week, once a month, once a quarter. It's all better than doing none of that, right? And you would be amazed how there tends to be I'm going to call it an arrogance with leadership. We have all the best ideas. You take people on the low end of the totem pole, entry-level people who haven't been jaded by industry or the process of how things should be done, they're going to think very differently than you are.
Oh, yeah.
Your job as a leader is not to have all the best ideas, it's to go, okay, I want to get a lot of smart people in the room, maybe some people you don't think are that smart, right? Super creative people I don't think are creative. You want to mix it all up and talk.
Yeah.
Here's something I want to talk about. Let's talk about that and just go anywhere. And it could be a vacation, right? But you have to lead that pathway in creativity as well. And that is a challenge with our industry a lot. You can hire some super creative people, but they can get so lost in the weeds as well because they get over creative. If it's really the best way to speak about that they can't apply it to anything.
Yeah.
And if you can learn how to channel that energy, that excitement, and the ideation that comes out of that, and put it towards achieving goals for yourself or for others, clients, customers, whatever that is, or just in your personal life, the reward you get back on that and the impact you see from other people seeing that work that you put into it, tremendous, absolutely tremendous. But some can't get away from it, and that's as bad as not being creative at all.
Well, and I think you touched on it real quick, but like one of the greatest rewards you can give an employee is for them to come up with something unique and a different approach, right, and see it through. And then when it happens, whether it's a success or failure, as a leader within the company that's allowing that type of thing, it allows for more of that to happen, right? And that just grows and fosters and builds upon itself, right? So then you have a bunch of people that are just thinking for you, right? And going, oh, hey, you could actually do this, or, oh yeah, I tried this thing, you should totally do that. Yeah. So, and it just changes the environment entirely, rather than going, okay, here's your 9 to 5, this is the way we do it, this is how it is, don't try to immediately, segue out of this is how it's always been done.
Yeah, I've always thought companies have morale building, they have their company retreats, things like that. If they would simply make that a brainstorming session, a retreat, whether you do it in the office or out the office, what do you want to do there? Team building typically happens because you feel like, things are dragging.
Right.
And you want to keep morale up because you have to do it because otherwise it really gets bad. Well, it's kind of the wrong reason to do it. I mean, I get why you're doing it, but if you just do it around creative thinking and really reward and show how appreciative you are about the way people think and problem solve, especially if they think about it very differently than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a quick story before we wrap this up. I go and speak to kids in elementary school sometimes, young age, and I like to get them about, well, maybe it's not elementary, junior high, that 10 or 11 age, right?
Okay.
And smart, brilliant people that think very differently, that their exposure to the world is very different because they're not to pay bills. None of those responsibilities are there yet. So if you ask them how to solve problems on, what do you think about making a jacket that does this? Or what do you think about a rocket ship if it could do this? And just let them start speaking. You'd be absolutely amazed what they come back with. They are so brilliant. And as they get older, I want to encourage it early to be creative thinkers and maybe consider coming into our industry, just because you're often told, you can't make a living doing that. You can't be an artist. You can't do this. You can't. You need to be this.
Yeah.
It's like, you can. And you can take the talents that you have, and if you think that way, rein that in and let somebody teach you how to make that beneficial for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it is so rewarding to walk out of those rooms and how some kids will have this wacky idea and everybody will laugh at them. And you just stop them and go, this kid has a bright, bright future. Here's why.
Yeah.
Sets that kid up on a pedestal, encourages the creative out-of-the-box thinking. So that's what the world needs.
Right.
And it puts everybody else at an ease of going, oh, that's odd. And yeah, I'm a stranger, but that was an example that happened one time, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. But anyway, thinking about through the creative thinking, at the end of the day, if you can apply that into everything,
Yeah.
I believe you're going to be a much better company and much better person in general with how things go. But don't put an expectation of success or failure on it.
Right.
Let it go where it needs to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that's probably one of the big key points is don't walk into, maybe this podcast inspires you significantly.
Maybe
and
it does.
You started, a new initiative to be able to have creative.
How awesome would that be?
Right? Creative Mondays,
Right.
whatever that is. But yeah, I think your expectation, especially as a leadership person, right? Like, don't expect to be able to go in there and solve the problem, right? That day, that one session, that one time, right?
Yeah.
It's going to take time. It is a process. I don't think a lot of people understand that creative thinking really is a process.
Yeah, I think it just happens, right?
Yeah, they're like,
No,
you just
hard.
turn your brain on and
Yeah,
it's
hard.
And that's the other thing. Sometimes it's spontaneous too, right? I would recommend, rather than trying to go on Mondays at 4 p.m., we're going to have a Creative Monday session. Instead, just let it naturally flow in the office.
And when you see it happening, embrace it and shut everything down and fall into it. Hard to do sometimes, but if you're looking for it, you can make that happen.
Absolutely.
Absolutely can.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to hear maybe some of the ways that you foster creative thinking, especially with big ideas and big thought processes within your own offices. It doesn't have to be an agency. We'd love to hear from accounting firms or, even healthcare.
Yeah,
any of those.
absolutely.
I'm sure they're experiencing a ton right now. We'd love to hear from you guys, whether that's a comment below or email us, agency@theglintstandard.com. Thank you guys so much.